Hi, Michaela. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Dio, John. Thanks for having
Oh,
me.
my pleasure. Wow, this is going to be a fun interview. I can just tell right away.
Oh, yeah. Let's go.
Okay. So you've written one book?
Yes. So I have
Okay.
already finished one book that I am currently shopping around with agents and things like that. And she's thinking, the person who I was speaking with most is thinking that I might end up having to split it. So I might have already written two books, but I'm currently, as a capsule, have one book already finished and like edited and ready for the publication. And then I have the second one that I'm about two-thirds of the way through.
Exciting. Very good. Well, before we get to that, though, I want to learn a little bit more about you, who you are, approximately where you live, and what got you to the point where you decided to write a book in the first place.
Oh, okay, great. Well, my name is Mikaela Duffy, and I live in Brooklyn, New York, the greatest city in the world. And in terms of what got me to the point of writing this book, I've kind of always been a writer and always found beauty in the written word. I think the written word is such a cool medium for storytelling because it's something that outlasts everything else. Like, stage productions only exist in the moment in which you're taking them in, right? Films only exist in whenever they stop being fashionable to watch again. But books have this timeless quality to them. Like the written word never dies. Even when you pass on, your written word stays for forever, which I think is just such a cool concept. Um, and I've written stories since I was little. I started writing little tiny books, and then in the late 2000s, fan fiction was a big thing, and so I really got into writing fan fiction, which is how I started kind of honing those novel writing skills. Big fan of fan fiction. Think it's great. Everyone should try it at least once. And then when I moved up to New York City, I had moved up to really pursue artistry in all the different forms. Like I wanted to be an actor, I wanted to write more, I wanted to be in a city that really relished in those kinds of skills and relished in art as a whole. And when the pandemic hit, it kind of like rocked all that a little bit. Everything kind of got, shifted around.
Right.
Um, but last year, when New York really started getting back into the like back to normal-esque, however normal New York ever really gets. I ended up doing an off-Broadway show. It was a solo show
Cool.
that honestly it was so much fun. One of the things I love about art is how imbued they can become with the affection and the love that people put into them. So a lot of my artistry comes from love, and I don't mean like romantic love, but the love that I have for my fellow human, and for humanity in general. Like my off Broadway show, Star Sweeper, was literally about someone who traversed the entire galaxy to save people who needed saving that no one else would go for. And it was all because every person is worth saving. Um, Everyone is like, there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. And this person is just so full of that sensation. And everybody who worked on the project, from the director to the stage manager to everybody, they just poured so much love into the show, and we ended up getting crowdfunded. It was this whole beautiful experience of people just coming together to make art. And so I did that. I ended up touring it down to Tampa. We won awards in both places, so ayo. But this book, get it, the long journey to the book. Um, this book, do you know what Dungeons and Dragons is, or like
Sure.
tabletop role playing games?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
sure. Of course I do.
So during the pandemic, I ended up joining this group of effective strangers to play Dungeons and Dragons. Because what else are we gonna do? We're stuck in the house all day long. Might as well start making stuff up. And I ended up building a chosen family out of this group of strangers through the storytelling of this tabletop role playing game. And it has become a story that just It means so much to me. It is just the most in depth, the most beautiful and wild and insane story that I've ever experienced. And so I had to solidify it in a physical item of a book. Like I had to write it down just so I didn't forget it. Um, just so that the years wouldn't take away these bits of story that had meant so much to me. So I started
Sure.
working on it after I finished my off Broadway show, and I really hadn't intended on writing a book. I wanted to see if I could write action. Because when you write stage plays, stuff like that, it's very much you're only writing the dialogue. And I was like, I'm gonna do an experiment and see if I can write action and see if I can make it fun to write. And then once I started writing, I didn't stop. And now
Mhm.
it's hundreds of pages in.
Yeah.
So now it's a project that's taken over my entire life.
Okay. I have a feeling you probably love your characters.
I do. I'm actually in the wrong room in my house to show you how much I love them. I actually, in my living room, my entire wall is covered in character art of these characters that I have accumulated over the years of us playing this game. And the coolest part about these characters is that they are based off of the people I love most. Um, yeah, it's people who I learned to love over the course of spending time together and spending, you know, like they are people who I call my brothers and sisters in real life,
Yeah.
and all these characters are their spirits that I get to hang out with my best friends every day I write, and it is such a cool experience,
It is.
and I get to make this book a love letter to our friendship group, to our chosen family, and say, look how much I love you. I spend hours and hours documenting our time together.
Mhm. Is your character in the book? Are you in there somewhere?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And for anybody who knows me, it takes less than 5 seconds to figure out which one it is. It's I I have a very, in case you haven't noticed, I have a very big personality and I like to make life. I have a very big, loud laugh. I have a lot of really strong opinions and a ton of hills I am willing to die on. This character, very much the same thing. You know, all strangers are just friends I haven't made yet, and either I love you or I hate you. There ain't no in between.
You remind me of why I love New York and why I went there in the 70s and 80s a lot of times.
Oh yeah,
The people there are just fantastic. I always had a great time in New York.
we definitely are very passionate.
Yes. Yes. I'm Hungarian. I can be very passionate too.
A rabble rousing debate, then let's go.
Yeah. Now, I take it this book is a fantasy, right?
Oh yeah,
Based,
yeah,
of
yeah.
course. And is there? I've had conversations with people who write fantasies, and it's a sort of a mixed bag. I write fantasies too, and the way I like to write it is I don't want to write nonfiction because I have a lot of things to say about this world, so I have my characters say it for me. Is that kind of what you're doing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think, well, you know, the correct term for fantasy and sci-fi is called speculative fiction, and what that means is it's, you know, speculating on what reality is, right? And so when you are writing fantasy, yes, there are the fantastical elements of magic and, you know, lineages that go thousands of years, people who live thousands of years, et cetera, but the reality is that you're still writing about society in whatever form it is, and society never changes. You can change the flavor, but it itself is still very much how we as humans in our current society function. And so one of the things that is most, you know, prevalent in my book specifically is, you know, these characters are within the city of Misport, and the Misport is a big trading port in the country of Danos. Danos is controlled by this empire that is incredibly tyrannical, very fascist, and most specifically is anti-magic that you can't control. So they mitigate what wizarding schools can teach. Like only certain ranks of people are able to receive different kinds of training, and it's also very expensive. So it's prohibitively expensive to a lot of people. Um, and anything that is not able to be regulated like, sorcery is magic within the blood, right? It's something I can't help it. I'm just full of magic. That is a black baggable offense. They throw you out, you disappear, because they can't regulate, they can't control it. And so there's a lot of commentary in this book on, individual freedom, but also, the freedom to exist how you are,
Mhm.
without any, caveats and any, little bits and bobs of societal expectations, I suppose.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot, like, one of the main characters, Nikea specifically, one of her struggles is she wants to change the world. She doesn't like what she sees. She sees the huge distinction between the classes, like the massive gap of poverty. She sees that these people are being treated differently for the way they look, for the way that they are, where they're from, and she wants to change that. And the biggest thing, she's naive and sweet, and she just wants to fix everything, and doesn't realize the cost of fixing things, because people don't just give rights away. You have to fight for them, and fighting oftentimes has a lot of really, really, really bad consequences.
Yeah.
But we still fight because it's
Yeah.
still the right thing. But it's, I personally think, like, I myself am, I want to change the world. I am an activist in my own small, tiny ways, and I still find it. So I find that I am naive in the fact of, like, oh, well, we could just fix things if we just changed little bits, and not realizing how ingrained those bits are within our society, and how much effort it takes to remedy them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Did it ever occur to you, even for a short time, since you like to write, that you're going to write nonfiction? You're going to write what Michaela thinks is wrong with society and how to fix it. Did you even think of doing that?
No. No, I would have. I I don't know. I don't know that I find joy in writing nonfiction. Um, I think I just really like storytelling, and I really like magic.
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
I asked that question because it occurred to me it was 2020 and things were happening and I wasn't that pleased with some of the things going on in the world. And I thought, I'm going to write about what I think about bigotry and stuff.
mhm.
And,
Bigotry and stuff.
and I thought, who would ever want to hear my opinions on that subject? What if I write fiction and have my characters act it all out? And it's a story, it's adventurous, and there's a message behind it. Is there a message behind you? Oh, I think there is. You've already answered that question, but talk about the message some more.
um, yes, there's a very distinct message that is actually really, succinctly put in one of the scenes. That character, Nikea, is going through, like, a crisis of faith. She sees that there's a culture clash happening, and one of her friends is part of that culture clash. She sees that there's just so many issues going on in the world, and she just feels so overwhelmed. She's like, everyone needs me to be so much more than I am, and I'm trying so hard, and I'm just me, and I don't know how to fix that. And her goddess, the goddess of the underprivileged and of luck, tells her, like, hey, have you ever heard about the lighthouse keeper of Burnabout? And she's like, no, I don't know, what does that mean? So she goes on to tell her this story of this lighthouse keeper. So this is a little sneak peek into the book. Look at you. So the lighthouse keeper lives in a lighthouse, and every night he turns on the light, and every day he turns it off. That's just kind of his life. And at one night, there's a massive hurricane, and lightning strikes the lighthouse and kills the light. But he can see that there is a ship out in the distance. He can see that there's a ship trying desperately to make it to the bay. Can't find it. Can't figure out what to do. And he's overwhelmed. The light is dead. He cannot fix it. It is pouring rain. He cannot change that. What can he do? So what he does is he runs to the end of the dock, puts a lantern on his stick, and just waves it around for hours until someone on the ship sees him and they can make it into the port safely. And the whole purpose is to say that you don't have to be special to change the world. The world does not need superheroes who can fix it. It just needs people who care enough to try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and like everybody in their small part can be heroic.
Okay.
It doesn't require anything special.
Yeah. It's so much fun writing that way.
Isn't it?
It's wonderful.
One of the things I struggle with most in today's society is there is so much dystopian storytelling. And like, yeah, I get it. I love, we love the dopamine push of, bad things happening unless we're experiencing the bad, while we live in a current dystopia, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But for me, I find so much more power in writing about love and writing about people who take care of each other and
Right.
people who want better things and are willing to fight for better things because the world could be better if we just tried together. And I find there's so much more power in that. Love is a far more vicious motivator than fear. And for me, it just, I feel like it makes stories come alive
Yes.
because even with all the bad that's in the world, because there's a lot of bad, even with all the bad in the world, people still hope
Yeah.
and people still love and people are still taking care of each other and opening doors for people and picking up stuff they drop. Like even in little tiny daily moments,
Sure.
people are still being good to each other.
Oh, there's far more good people than not.
Absolutely.
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 Yeah.
And I feel like there's just so much focus on all the bad things. And like, I don't mean to be, toxically positive because there is lots of bad. There's lots of big bad.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I feel like for whatever tiny platform I have, I just want to focus on the people who are the helpers, the people who are combating
Right, right. You're a pure artist. I can tell that. That's really nice. That's great.
that. I appreciate it. Thank you. I also think that there's great power in writing fiction. Neil Gaiman has this quote, and I'm gonna butcher it, but this is essentially the vibe. Is like, in a world in which there are dragons and there are gargoyles and there are goblins and there are terrible things that are wishing to take your soul. Those are the worlds in which hope is brightest and people always fight the most.
Hmm.
And so like it's so much easier to help people find those feelings of bravery when they're having to fight dragons and things like that, as opposed to, like, the crushing sense of capitalism. um and it's easier to remind other humans that, bravery and compassion can still exist even when the world around us is so dull and suffocating.
Hmm. Well, as you can see, I'm a musician, and when I wrote songs, and I still do once in a while, and it was difficult enough to get the songs into people's hands so that they take the 4 or 5 minutes to listen to a song. That
Mhm.
was hard enough. But when I wrote a book that's maybe 280 pages, to try and get that into someone's hands, so hey, read this book. There's a lot of good messages in there. I find that even harder. I came to that realization this one time about 5 years ago, where there was somebody who passed away recently, and they painted paintings. And one of their paintings was hanging on someone's wall in the house. And they said, "Oh, you see that painting over there? So and so painted that." People go, "Really? Oh, that's really nice." They stood up. They spent maybe about 15, 20 seconds looking at the painting, and it was over. And that's when I realized, yeah, writing a book, it's not like a painting. Um, how are you getting your book into people's hands and having them read it?
Mostly doing exactly what I'm doing with you. Talking about it and showing them how passionate I guess I am. And like, so yeah, I wish I could say like I have this, this foolproof plan of being like, yeah, you just get 5,000 followers on Instagram and everyone's gonna love your book. And that's not the case. I mean, I've only really had a few handful of people who've actually, sat down and read it, because to read a fantasy book, that's an endeavoring, you know what I mean? Like, you got to sit through all the world building, you got to sit through all the character development. So
Right.
you have to commit to reading
You
fantasy books.
do, yeah. And
And
there's history in your book too, to explain how things got to where they are.
correct,
Mm,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, and I think the only way that I have found to convince people to read it is by literally just showing them how much it means to me.
Mhm.
Going on podcasts and talking to people and just being like, hey, man, if you're feeling this way and you don't want to feel alone anymore, this is the book that you might want to read. Talking about like, yes, the world is so hard and so desperately terrible. Read something that makes you feel like something you do makes a difference and reminds you that you can be a hero in whatever small way you have. Like that's really what I've been doing is getting people to love, I don't say to love me and then be like, oh well, I'll check out your book.
Mhm.
uh but really trying to tap into how people are feeling
Yeah.
nowadays and saying, if this is how you as a person are feeling, this story may bring you something,
Mhm.
and letting them kind of come to it naturally like that.
I didn't have a chance before our interview here today to look at your Amazon page. I imagine it's on Amazon.
Not yet.
Oh,
No,
okay.
actually, I'm going through all these things and like trying to put up my book. My book's actually not for sale yet. So I'm
Oh,
still gathering people to kind of be interested in it when it finally does become for sale. Because it's currently I am working to secure a contract with an agent, one that I really really like. So fingers crossed. And then beyond that, we'll start submitting it for that, or I'll decide to just self-publish. It's kind of in between. I don't know where I'm going to
I
go
see.
yet,
I see. Sure.
because
Of course.
yeah, because my book is a very it's a very specific kind of book. It's a multi-point of view book,
Hmm.
and I don't know that it would be marketable for most traditional publishers. So,
Okay.
I'm going to give it a go, see if anybody's like interested, and if not, hopefully doing these podcasts and stuff like that will get
Yeah.
enough interest that when I do self-publish it, it still has some kind of successes in it.
Yeah. I'll get to the addendum of my question in a moment, but when do you expect that is going to be published? Do you have any projected idea?
I'm hoping somewhere between 2024 and 2025.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like, because I actually just yesterday I got my full edit from my editor. So I have it fully, professionally edited now. It's really cool to be able to see that. And I've been kind of posting on my Instagram and TikTok about the process of writing a book. And after you've written the book, after you've done the big fat first step of writing the book, all the other things that come after that, because you've self-published books, correct?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So once you write the book, that's the first step of 1,000. Because
Hmm.
then you have to start editing it. You self-edit it. You have alpha readers, beta readers. You take their comments, then you send it to an editor. You get it developmentally edited, and then after that, you have a copy or a line editor. Like there's just so many steps, and like I did not know that. I was like,
Yeah.
I'll write a book and it'll be fine. Now there's so many steps,
Oh, there is.
and yeah, and so I'm currently, you're watching Mikaela live. This is I'm learning it as I go. So hopefully everything will be finalized and ready to rumble by
Yeah.
next year. Because this year has been the learning curve of, oh, there's so much more that goes into doing a book.
And it's costly like anything else. If you want to be a musician, you can't just say, I'm a musician. You got to buy the equipment that costs money. You
Mm-hmm.
want to write a book, you're going to have to pay for this, that, and the other thing. It is costly. Are you happy with your cover, your artist, or have you gotten that far yet?
So I haven't. I know who I would like for my artist, but the thing is, you got to pay them, right? And
Of
so
course.
I am saving up the money to pay because it's a little more expensive than I thought it was going to be. But
Yeah.
I love their work, so it is something I anticipate that I will enjoy.
Okay.
um, but it's one of those things. It's a substantial expenditure because pay artists, hashtag pay artists. Um, and so I'm, because I am just a solo person, I am saving up the money to do that and to make sure that what I get is what I want. Because like, the last thing you want in the world is to put all this time and all this effort and all this money and then still not be pleased with what you got and not feel proud to be like, yeah, this is my book. So not quite yet, but I know the idea, and like I've talked to with this artist back and forth a little bit, and so once I have the finances, we're going to be ready to go, and I'm super excited.
Okay. I won't have any B-roll to show in this edit then. Okay, fine.
Oh,
Uh,
so sorry.
no, that's all fine. It's a unique episode. And I will tell you something, and I'll keep this in the edit. Your YouTube stream is March 13th
That's
uh,
almost my birthday.
on in 2024. Now, if for whatever reason we're coming up to that date and you do have a shot of your cover, I'll put it in. Uh,
Oh,
Otherwise,
perfect. Okay.
otherwise it'll just be without any B-roll, and we'll see your bubbly personality and everything you have to say about yourself. And I think that'll sell itself right there.
That's so kind of you. Yeah, well, if you ever want character art, let me tell you, I got lots of character art.
Okay. So the question I wanted to ask before was when you do get to the point of trying to get this book into people's hands, would you consider an ebook?
Oh yeah. Oh, 100%.
Apparently
I think
they sell really well.
yeah, well, I mean, it's so much more accessible nowadays. For
Hmm.
one, paper is expensive. So, not having to carry around physical paper is just a less burden on a person. It's also just so expensive. It's more accessible whenever you have an ebook,
Hmm.
just because it effectively has to be a cheaper version of the book. Ebooks also provide accessibility for blind people. It's you can hear it through an ebook. So it's just that it's so much more accessible for everybody
Hmm. Right.
to have an ebook. Very, very pro ebook in this house.
Right. Yeah, I've learned quite a bit from talking to other authors. Apparently, you could even set up a time period, like 2 weeks or something like that, where the ebook is free. And people like free, so they can just download it. And
That's fun.
yeah, you should look into that. I'm planning on looking into it myself. I haven't done it yet, but that's a
Yeah,
good
I
thing.
know a lot of people do like ARC, advanced reader copies,
Okay.
and I wonder if that's similar in vein to having your book free for a couple of weeks. Like I know like advanced reader copies, you send them a copy of your book and they get a free book, and you're like, if you want to write a review about it, that'd be great.
Yeah, yeah.
Just so you can get how people feel about it.
It sounds to me that what you're writing can very easily turn into a series. Is that how you're thinking?
I mean, that would be great. I would love that. I mean, oh, like I was thinking like film or television. I would love it for it to be a film or television series. No, my book is at least bare minimum is four books. I already have the shot list for the entire four books. Because it is based on my campaign. It is all of the things that happened in the book happened in our game. So I already know where it goes. I know where it ends, and that's a really cool thing because a lot of people when they start writing books, they don't know how the story's going to end. I already know from now to the end of our story
Okay.
how it goes, and so it absolutely is a series, and I think it's a really fun series. I'm
Okay.
enjoying writing it. So
Cool. Yeah. I'll ask you what kind of writer you are. I write the synopsis for every book I write first. It can take me up to about a month, sometimes a little longer, depending on the complexity of the story. So then I have a blueprint, and then I start writing. Now, some people just write and make it up as they go along. What kind of writer are you?
I'm a little bit of both. So when I first started, I was just I believe it's like a planner or a pantser is the book talk for term of it. I was just writing for the sake of writing because I wasn't intending on writing a book. But when I decided that I was actually gonna sit down and do the thing, like really commit, what I did was I got with my brothers Tim and Topher, who were the best note keepers of our game, and created what I call a shot list, which is essentially line by line the chapters and what happens in them, so that I can you know write the chapter. So I really just have a sentence of like this happens at this point, and I write the chapter over it. And as I have it in the shot list, I can move them around if I feel like, oh, I've been spending way too much time with Kaz lately. I need to switch over to Pepe. I can like move them around and migrate them. But I very much am. I have at least one or two lines that tells me what's going to happen in the chapter, and then I just kind of word vomit on it.
Hmm.
But I don't start writing until I know where that book's going.
Okay.
Because I just when you know where the book's going, you can add hints of it in the beginning.
Yes, of course.
And so so I like, because I love leaving hints. I love leaving stuff that people can go back and reread the book and be like, you were telling me this at the beginning and I
Hmm.
didn't even say it.
Yeah.
That's
In television, I
yeah.
was a television editor. We call that tent polling. Yeah, you
Oh,
have to. Yeah, you're planting seeds and you're tent polling. And
yeah,
this
is it
word
TENPOLE? Tenpole?
tent tent
Oh,
polling.
tent pulling. Okay.
Yeah, and dropping seeds and tent polling. That's what the terminology they used. And sometimes I find myself calling my chapters um, episodes. You know,
Hmm.
because I
I
still
mean,
think it in terms of television. Yeah.
but for me, like you ask what kind of writer I am. I very much am a writer that when you're reading through it, my goal is for you to be able to see the film.
Yeah.
So I am very descriptive in my writing. I talk about the way that people's facial expressions look. I talk about the grain of wood that they touch. Um, in my chapter, you should be able to be in the scene with these characters and not just reading about what they're experiencing. If
Hmm.
that makes any sense.
Sure, of
Like
course it does.
it's very much written in the same way that a film is shot.
Hmm. The language and some of the scenes, is this good for children or is it strictly adult?
That's a great question. Um, the main characters are all in their late 20s to, middle 30s, except for like one of them who happens to be much older. But so I definitely think it is more geared towards adults. Um, I think a precocious 16, 17-year-old would probably get something out of it, but I don't think it's for like kids. Mostly because, there are battles, there is violence. There is, and one of my main characters, Nikia, is very vulgar in the way she speaks
Okay,
because she's a very honest person, and
sure.
so she throws the f bomb wherever she wants
Yeah,
because it's the best word to get across her feelings.
yeah.
So yeah, I definitely wouldn't say it's for like children, um, but I don't think it's like an R17 or anything.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I'm not going to ask you about sales because
Not quite.
not we're not there yet. But that I understand you have a website. Talk about that.
I do. So my website is www.mikaela, Mikaela, Duffy, Duffy.com. Very original, I know. But on that website, you can see all the stuff about me. You can find I'm an opera singer. You can find videos of my opera singing. You can see the stuff from Star Sweeper, and there's a whole section about the Missport Guardians, and that's what this book is called, the Missport Guardians, where you can see like some artistic interpretations of what these characters look like. You can kind of get a little bit of their backstory, the kind of personalities that they've got. It kind of gives like an overview of what the world is that they're participating in. And beyond my website, I also have Instagram and TikTok. Everywhere online, I'm at Mikaela Duffy Writes. So at MikaelaDuffywrites, which is the longest TikTok name in the world. But I post tons of videos about these characters, tons of videos about the story, tons of videos about writing. Like if you happen to be a writer and you just want to watch a video of someone going through what you're going through, that my Instagram and TikTok are pretty good for that. Like I recently just posted a video where I was at a library and the caption is like, your friends and family are always like, oh my God, you've written an entire book. Like you must be such a good writer. We're so proud of you. And then it just pans over to my computer where it says synonyms for happy, synonyms for green. Because 90% of my writing is just Googling synonyms for other things.
Yes, I know the feeling. I know the
Yeah,
feeling.
yeah, like very relatable content.
Have you noticed in your writing when you're going back over it that there's words you use a little too often?
No, why would you say that?
I'll
Why
tell
would you
I'll
say
tell you the
that?
word I use a lot, and I have to go but.
But
Yeah.
oh, okay.
But this. Yeah.
My
That'll
like I said, I just got my edit back, and I haven't gone through all of the comments yet. But 90% of her comments are dangling modifiers, and I was just like, Okay, I'm just gonna take that super to heart. It's fine. So I don't know what words I use frequently, but I definitely apparently use a lot of modifiers that are just like dangling out in the abyss.
Well, okay, I'll remember that term. No,
Wait, well, it's such a strange. Do you know what a dangling modifier is?
no, I can't say I do.
Okay, so essentially, it's where you have something modifying a noun in the sentence, but not the subject. So, say that you're saying that you write walking through the hall, uh, the walls started to close in on him, right? The walking through the hall is actually modifying the walls that are closing in on him as opposed to the him. So if you were saying walking down the hall, Chris opened his eyes and the wall started closing in on him. Chris is now the thing that is walking through the hall. It is
Oh,
a
okay.
very yeah. It's so
Wow.
yeah. It's so stupid. Like I actually had to send my editor an email, and all it says was, "What is a dangling modifier?" Because like I went online and I really couldn't find anything that really explained what she was trying to mean. Um, so yeah, that's well, at least when they're getting to that point, it's really nitty gritty. So you've got something good there, I guess.
Cool. Yeah. Anything else you want to say?
Thank you so much for having me on. This has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed
It
chatting with
has.
you.
It's been a lot of fun. All right, then. Well, we'll get this up on YouTube in March. And in the meantime, I'll post it on Facebook and you could play with it all you want.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And maybe next year we'll have some sales to talk about.
Yes, yes. Please come back on the show when you have
Updates.
more to speak to me about. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your presence here.
Thank you so much, John.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. And before you go, if you like what I do here on Tell Me About Your Book, then consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and don't forget to ring that bell for future notifications. You can even leave a comment. All of that really helps in recommending this channel to a larger audience. And if you are an author, I would love to speak with you about your book. Until next time, keep on writing and be kind to one another.